Okay, hello Bio 2. This is Mr. B and we're continuing on with exploring Mendelian genetics, and this is part 2 of this section. So now we're going to take a look at more of the work that Gregor Mendel carried out. So the first thing we're going to look at, or the main thing we're going to look at in this video, is what inheritance patterns exist aside from simple dominance. So far up to this point, we've talked about one allele being dominant over the other, and that's the one that's going to show up. Unless, of course, the dominant allele is not present, then the recessive allele is going to show up. However, other patterns exist besides just simple dominance, so we're going to take a look at those. And then again, some alleles are neither dominant nor recessive, and they're controlled by multiple alleles or multiple genes. So we're going to take a look at what these examples are. So our first case is going to be called incomplete dominance, and this is when one allele is not completely dominant over another. So an example of what incomplete dominance might look like, we'll get there to the example in a second. In incomplete dominance, the heterozygous phenotype is between the two homozygous phenotypes. So what that means is that they mix together. Our dominant trait, let's say, is going to mix with our recessive trait. Not one takes over the other, so you can't really call them dominant or recessive. So it's just our phenotypes are kind of a mixture between the two. So that'll make more sense when we see an example here. So when you think of incomplete dominance, we're going to think of a mixture between two alleles, because our example is what's called a 4 o'clock plant. And when we have two different types here, we have red and a white, and so you notice how neither one is lowercase because neither one is dominant nor recessive. So when we cross red and white, we don't get kind of a mixture between red and whites. We get pink. We get all pink. So that is showing that our two characteristics, our two alleles, mix with one another in incomplete dominance. So we have red and white making pink. So that's incomplete dominance. Think of it as a mix. And in codominance, both alleles are going to contribute to the phenotype. And so an example of that is that in certain varieties of chicken, the allele for black feathers is codominant with the allele for white feathers. So what that means is that heterozygous chickens are speckled with both black and white feathers. The black and white colors do not blend like they did in incomplete dominance, but they appear separately. So in codominance, they are both going to appear. They don't mix together. They don't mix black and white to form some crazy color. They just both show up, and our example is in some chickens. So that's codominance. Then our next example is called multiple alleles, and these are genes that are controlled by more than two alleles, are said to have multiple alleles. Kind of self-explanatory in its name there. And then kind of a rule about this is that an individual can't have more than two alleles, so we're always going to have two alleles controlling one trait. However, more than two possible alleles can exist in a population. So what that means is that I may have two separate alleles for one gene, but you might have two completely different alleles on the same gene. So it's just kind of saying that between individuals the alleles can change, but within one person they will always be two alleles. So again, when we get our examples, they make more sense here. So our first example is going to be a rabbit coat color that's determined by a single gene that has at least 4 different alleles. So rabbit A could have 2 alleles, and rabbit B will have 2 different alleles. So that's what that means there. And so our first rabbit fur color is called full color, and that is dominant to all other alleles. So this is present. It's always going to be here. So as you can see down here, here are our different alleles. We have big C, we have little c with a CH, we have little c with an H, and then just little c. So those are our 4 different alleles. So full color is our first one. But then we have what's called chinchilla, and this is when we have little c and little c with little ch on it. When that's present, then that is going to be a chinchilla rabbit. As you can see, it's not going to be, if we go back, it's not present in the full color one, but then it's here in the chinchilla. And then we have our next one is called Himalayan. So this is color in certain parts of the body, and that's It's not quite albino. We're going to see what albino looks like in a second, but it's because you can see it has colors on its nose and its ears and its feet. And our last one, albino, is solid white, and that is going to be, again, just when we have two little C's, and that's the one that's going to be recessive to all others. So that's what multiple alleles is. So all these different alleles exist, however they don't exist in each individual. So our next is polygenic traits, and these are traits that are controlled by 2 or more genes, are said to be polygenic. And skin color in humans is a polygenic trait that's controlled by more than 4 different genes. So 4 different genes inside our body contribute to the why our skin is the color that it is. And so applying all these principles that we just discussed, multiple alleles and polygenic traits and incomplete dominance and codominance, another guy by the name of Thomas Hunt Morgan came along, and he used fruit flies to kind of build on what Mendel was doing. And he tested Mendel's principles and learned that they apply to other organisms as well as plants. And his principles can be used to study inheritance of human traits and to calculate probability of certain traits appearing in the next generation. And then also kind of some last thing is that characteristics of any organisms are determined by their interaction between genes and the environment. We'll discuss this in class with the rabbits. However, rabbits are a certain color. Their genes are kind of made them a certain color over time because that is the best way to survive. It's the best way for them to blend in. Rabbits have to blend in or else they die. And the reason why you don't see too many albino rabbits is because they usually get picked off by predators because they're the easiest ones to see. So that is it for that video. Let me know if you have